We do these co-writes with folks as well, which is kind of an interesting thing because that writing with somebody is such an intimate experience anyway, and the three of us kind of have our way of working. So it's funny, somebody that has some really cool ideas, and we're just sitting there working it out on a Zoom call or something, and we're working out somebody else's idea, and as we're doing this, we look up and the guy's just kind of wide-eyed going, I can't believe it.
That's Tim Smith of the Lickerish Quartet. I'm Jamie Green, and this is Trading Fours. Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of Trading Fours. Happy holidays to you and your family. Today I've got Tim Smith in the house. Tim Smith, what a great musician. He, of course, probably came on your radar when he was the bassist in Jellyfish for their Spilt Milk tour way back in 1993. And you might also remember I had Roger Manning on from the same band to talk about the Lickerish Quartet when they had Volume 1 of their EP out, Threesome. Well, guess what? Volume 2 is coming out January 21st, I believe, and Tim was so kind to join me via the phone. He called in from Atlanta, Georgia to talk about the new EP. Great chat, great guy. I think you're going to really dig this one. These guys are so freaking talented. I mean, all of them. It's just amazing. So they're doing these songs in their house, and then they're combining it, and it sounds great. So let's get started. Here's my conversation with Tim Smith.
Well, Tim, thanks so much for joining me on Trading Fours. And first off, I always ask people, how you holding up, man?
We're holding up pretty good here in Atlanta. It's the weather's not so cold, so that's cool, so we can get outside and just working on things to do with our upcoming release. So a lot of press and a lot of social media stuff, keeping me busy these days.
Well, that's good. So this is actually, for people that don't know, I actually had Roger Manning on the podcast back in April when you had the first EP out, which was 3 tunes, correct? And then this one is the second EP from you guys, which is 4 tunes, that's coming out in January, correct?
Yep, that's correct. It's called Threesome Volume 2.
Right. And then it's the Lickerish Quartet. So you guys are a little wink there, right? Because it's 3 of you guys.
Yeah, it was it's sort of a play on there was a film that Roger's a big fan of called the Lickerish Quartet, so that's kind of where he found the name. And but yeah, something to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I really, really loved the first EP. It was great, and it's just interesting listening to you guys as you've evolved, and it's always so well produced. The harmonies are just unbelievable. You guys just bring so much to the table, and I really, I think a lot of people, myself included, kind of felt like Jellyfish didn't get to end the way we wanted it to, and obviously this isn't Jellyfish, but it has components of that. So kind of talk to me about when you and Eric and Roger decided, hey, let's reconnect and work on it and record some new tunes.
Sure. I guess it was in 2017 when, about January of 2017, Roger and I kind of reconnected, just talking about things. We both, or all of us, have been working with other people as side musicians, touring with other folks, and just hadn't really had a chance to see each other or do anything creative much. So he reached out to me in January of 2017 and said, hey, would you be interested in trying to write some songs? And I was going to be mostly off the road that year. So we kind of got together, and then we just said, hey, I wonder what Eric is doing. So actually we ended up going to Eric's place and doing some co-writing just to see how it would go, and it seemed to go pretty smoothly. I think we all still sort of have the same record collections and the same amount of respect for certain genres of music and the approach to things. So we wrote about 12 songs together from various bits and pieces that we had all accumulated separately, and we all worked on them together. So it just happened quickly, and within that year we had already done most of the basic tracking for most of it. We hired a drummer friend of ours from England to come over and play drums named Jeremy Stacey. And so the four of us really focused on it for about a year, and then we were deciding how we wanted to put it out, and we decided to do it the way we are now, doing a series of 3 EPs, and we never really had any idea of touring or playing out live, and obviously with COVID that kind of shut everybody down from touring anyway, but it was just meant to be in the spirit of what we've all done in the past, and not necessarily, as you say, trying to be Jellyfish in any way per se, more of just a sensibility to songwriting craft that we all enjoy doing together.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's really interesting too, because I mean, for the Jellyfish component was pretty much just Roger and then Andy, correct? That was writing, and this seems like this is much more collaborative, where everybody's bringing their own songs, and you guys are working much more as a band per se than just one or two songwriters, correct?
Yeah, I mean that was never going to be any different than what it was. Jellyfish was always Roger and Andy, and that's fine. And they, I was a fan before I played in Jellyfish, as was Eric, who joined to play guitar on the Spilt Milk tour. So, there was some discussion about that at the end of Jellyfish, but it was never going to go anywhere. And then, of course, Roger and Eric formed a band called Imperial Drag, so they had worked together and had written together. So there was a history there, and kind of a way of working that. But yeah, I had worked with Roger and Eric on a project of mine sort of right after Jellyfish called the Uma Jets that they came and played on, and we wrote a little bit. But yeah, it had been, over 15 years before we had done anything creative together. Again.
Yeah, time just flies, doesn't it? I think you and I are pretty close in age, and it's just, I was like, how did I wake up and how am I 52 years old? Like, it just doesn't seem possible, but here we are.
Yeah. My body feels that old, but my heart doesn't. So.
That's right. Amen to that. So let's talk specifically. So I got an advanced copy of the new EP. I really dug it, and I'm guessing just because you were the quote that for the tune "Do You Feel Better," that was kind of something that you started off and mostly wrote. Is that correct? How would you put that?
Yeah. I mean, all the songs we co-wrote to some extent, but they were sort of driven by one of us for each of the tunes. Somebody was sort of the one who brought the initial idea, and that one was mine, that I wrote the lyric for, actually some of it with a friend of mine here in Atlanta that I know. So, but yeah, that was, I don't know what you want me to say about it. It's a cool tune.
It's a great tune. It's really, I've listened to it 3 or 4 times. I dig it a little more every time I listen to it. I told Roger this too. It's like, I always have to listen with you guys with my headphones on, because I'll catch things I don't catch the first time or the second time. It's just a great crafted song. So, I just really dug it. So, I mean, that's probably why I brought it up. I just really enjoyed it a lot.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I mean, we do that. I mean, that's just kind of the records that we like have that same kind of sensibility where you have to actually sit down and listen to them. And they're created with that, the desire to find something new every time you hear it. Hopefully that resonates with people. I'm glad you like it. It seems like the craft of doing that is not quite as prevalent, and while I don't think it's an old school thing, I think there are plenty of contemporary artists that are doing that. It's nice to see that, sitting down to listen to music is coming back to some degree.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Tim, what was your 2020 gonna be like before the whole world shut down?
Well, we were still going to be releasing all these things. We all had other work as side musicians, as I said, and there were, everybody was going to be doing some touring and stuff. I know Roger was supposed to be touring with Beck again, so we were kind of trying to figure out a way to do some shows, perhaps in Los Angeles, and just see how things went. I mean, I don't think we were ever going to be the kind of group that would get in a van and go and play pubs or bars or whatever. So
Right.
it's quite an endeavor for us to rehearse this music and perform it, which was also the case in Jellyfish, just a lot of rehearsing and trying to do it with 4 people. So, there were plans for that at least, and doing some sort of showcase things or some private events for some of our super fans and things. But yeah, obviously that had to be sidelined.
Yeah, it's just a real bummer. I think it's hard to even describe, right? I mean, we've had a lot of changes in the music business over 25 years. I mean, we went from where albums were where you made your money to, touring's where you make your money to where everything's digitized. But I don't think anybody foresaw every act basically in the country not being able to tour. I don't think anybody even imagined something like that could happen.
Yeah, I mean, this is, well, obviously everybody knows what's going on. It's just, it's devastating to the industry that I've been a part of for 20 years. I just don't even know how it's going to recover to the same. We were already facing issues with the way that people choose to or not choose to support musicians and music by downloads or not paying for music. And I understand that the world will shift and things change, but it's been, it's just a struggle to try and continue to make a living at the level that we've, as working musicians have, especially when you take away the touring element. So you're right. It's, I just try and turn the page and go, okay, I'm going to focus on being creative and doing as many things as I can in the digital realm and engaging with folks in our sphere of music and stuff. And we've kind of leaned more into doing, instead of selling so much music, we've been selling these experiences on our website so that we can, we can do a virtual music lesson, or we play on people's stuff, or we'll do a cover song that they like. And engaging in that way has been really exciting and fun, and allowing us to connect with folks that way.
Yeah, those people are very, I don't know if hardcore is the right term, but they're very passionate about the music and you guys and what you do and what you've done. And I actually reached out to you at one point on the Jellyfish fan page on Facebook and said, hey, let's do an interview. And then your publicist reached out right after that. So went that route. But these people I feel very strongly about. And I think it's so cool that you guys are doing these tunes with, amateurs, for lack of a better word. And you're playing on these people's tracks. It's got to make their year.
Well, we hope it's a good experience. I mean, we do these co-writes with folks as well, which is kind of an interesting thing, because writing with somebody is such an intimate experience anyway. And we the 3 of us kind of have our way of working. So it's funny, somebody that has some really cool ideas, and we're just sitting there working it out on a Zoom call or something, and we're working out somebody else's idea, and as we're doing this, we look up and the guy's just kind of wide-eyed going, I can't believe it. And, well, we're just working through stuff that we like. And it's fun to see people enjoy our process and share in that. And it's cool for us to help songwriters and musicians that are trying to learn about stuff that we've learned. I mean, there's something to be said for as long as we've been doing it. So we're happy to be able to give that back to folks.
No, that's great. I mean, I think it's really great that you guys pivoted and tried to, how can you still be involved? How can you still make a buck too? Because you need to survive. I mean, nobody just lets you stay at their house or rent a place, right? You still got to make a living, but in a very creative and fun way. And I know that the fans have really responded to it, so that's great. Tim, I'm really interested. Let's talk a little bit about your history and back up before, too much. So you're from Atlanta, correct? That's where you grew up?
Actually, I grew up in Louisiana, but I moved to Atlanta right out of high school to join a band called the Producers, sort of a power pop band in the 80s that were based here. So I've been here since then.
Where'd you grow up in Louisiana?
In Baton Rouge.
Okay. Yeah, my mom is from Texarkana, so and her family was from Shreveport and all that.
That's a whole different, North Louisiana is a whole different universe from Baton Rouge and New Orleans.
Yeah,
which I never
absolutely.
really until
No,
I
it's
got
not
up
a college town up there, and it's not Bourbon Street, right? It's
right.
It's very different. But I love Louisiana. It's a beautiful state and very friendly people and stuff. And Anyway, so yeah, that stuff. And then so I know you don't only just play bass, you play guitar and do a lot of other stuff. So was it something where you kind of like the Paul McCartney situation where like they need a bass player and you're the guy, or is it something that you just really wanted to do too, or how was that process?
Yeah, no, it was always, I mean, the first band that I joined out of high school, I was a fan of, called Producers, and I wasn't a bass player, I was a guitar player in school, and my little, teenage rock combos and stuff, and I just was such a fan, I borrowed a friend's bass, learned their songs, came to Atlanta for an audition, got that job, and did that for quite a while, and then found out through a mutual friend about Jellyfish needing a bass player, and I ended up needing a guitar player as well. But same kind of deal, just sort of learn this stuff. I don't consider myself a schooled bass player. I've been more of a guitar player. But I appreciate what it takes to be a bass player, and it seems to be I've had more offers for work. I did the same with Sheryl Crowe. I played bass with Sheryl Crowe for 14 years or so, and after the first couple of years of playing bass with her, she's a really good bass player too, and had played bass on some of her records, and I just suggested that she play bass some because I thought it was cool, and I started playing guitar more live and swapping off. So it's been fun to move around, but yeah, it's more of I don't consider myself a virtuoso of anything. It's more about what's best for the song, and hopefully I have a voice in my own playing that is unique enough to stand out on its own.
No, absolutely. It's always interesting how people get, because there's the hardcore guys that like the day that they woke up and they're like, I'm a bass player and that's all I want to do, and they're listening to Flea and they're listening to Geddy Lee and they're listening to Jocko and all that, and then there's I think most people know about Paul McCartney, but Kathy Valentine being another, the Go-Go's needed a bass player. She'd always thought of herself as a guitarist, but now she's a bass player. It's just kind of an interesting way how people fall into that.
I mean, look, I grew up in Baton Rouge playing jazz, and I remember going to see Jocko open for the Dixie Dregs. I get it, and it's a whole different level of dedication. I did play bass in one of my rock bands where we played all Rush songs, so I know what these bass parts are about. And it's cool. I can go down that route. I just prefer to think of myself as just a musician and just whatever is appropriate, I'll try and do. It's fun to relearn things. I don't like to get too practiced. I think there's something about the struggle that you're playing that helps create an emotional response to what you're doing. So, or I'm just lazy.
Absolutely.
I can't tell which one it is.
Go with the former. You're creative. That's what it is. That's hilarious. Yeah. Well, that's cool. And then, I mean, there's so many. I mean, Sheryl's obviously a great act. The Finn brothers, they've written some amazing songs too. How was that process with them?
Yeah, that was amazing. I grew up a huge fan of Crowded House, and even before that, Split Enz. I was a big Split Enz fan. So, one of the guys that I had played, actually Jeremy Stacey, who played drums on our Lickerish Quartet stuff, had played with me in Sheryl's band. We met him, Jellyfish toured the UK, and he was in a band in the UK that supported Jellyfish, so we became friends then. And through some other folks, he was connected with Neil Finn's management to do a tour, and he was in a car with me in Los Angeles and was talking to them about it, and I was just poking and going, please let me in on this gig. So we did that in, 2004 and 5. And it was just so musical. It's maybe, I'm very proud of what I got to be a part of in Jellyfish, but I think playing with the Finn brothers is probably the most musical thing I've ever done. It was just fearless. Those two guys as musicians and as writers were just willing to do anything and everything to create an emotional connection. And so we were lucky to travel around the world with them for a couple of years and do that. It was really most proud of playing bass with them.
Yeah. Their ability to write those songs that, and obviously the Crowded House 80s stuff, I know, people remember that, but they wrote so many great tunes that people aren't even aware of. They're just amazing. And I'm sure, you get to discover some of those when you get to play different stuff with them too, right?
Yeah. I mean, the thing that I really took away from them, and, they still are much older than me, but, they still have this youthful enthusiasm for creativity, and not just in music, it's in everything, in the arts and drawing and painting, and it was so awesome to see them and their families and how they choose to live that way and travel around and be that as a family even. It shifted my whole paradigm about what and how to live as a musician in this world, because they just encompass so many things as people that I respected. And I've, most of the folks I've worked with have been fairly nice and good people, but these guys had a different level of, they were just immersed in their being of, all of that. And it just made a big impression on me.
Yeah. I think Distant Sun is one of my favorite songs ever. That's such a great song. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So many great songs. Well, you've been really lucky, man. You've played with some amazing people, some really great songwriters. I mean, you obviously are a great songwriter too, but that's got to just inspire you, right? Kind of elevate your game too.
Oh, totally. Yeah. In fact, the song that you mentioned that you liked off EP1 was sort of, it wasn't done on purpose, but it has some of that kind of sensibility in the way that it was written. So definitely.
Yeah.
An impact.
Yeah. What's the official name of it, Tim? It's the Magic Number tune. It's escaping me.
It's called There Is a Magic Number. Yeah.
Yeah. That bridge is so strong. I always think with people that are really good songwriters, there's a lot of times that the main melody's great, but then the bridge is just kind of okay. But boy, that's a great bridge too. It works so well.
Thanks. Yeah.
Well, I want to be cognizant of your time and stuff, but I want to make sure that people know. Obviously, all of me and all my musician friends are enormous. I actually worked in a college radio station and became aware of Jellyfish when we played on college radio a million years ago and have followed stuff. But what's the best way? I know that you guys, like you said, you've been really doing social media a lot. So if people want to get on board and know more about your band with Eric and Roger and stuff, what's the best way for people to follow them? Is it on Facebook? Is it on Twitter? What do you think, Tim?
We're on everything. I mean, we're not on TikTok, but we're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're on Twitter. We have a YouTube channel. We put up a lot of different videos, sort of the making of things, some fun, comical type things that we've been doing. We're trying to do more creative stuff like that. But if you go to the lickerishquartet.com, there are links to all that stuff there. We have our store there. We have our experience store there. We're doing sort of cameo style things too. If people want to have a phone call with us or happy birthday, that kind of stuff. I know I don't want to sound like a salesman, but that's kind of what we're focusing on these days, just because that's all we can do.
Yeah, it's the gig economy. I mean,
yep.
You got to make a buck. That or marry somebody really, really rich. Those are your options.
Right. Totally.
Well, that's great. And go ahead, Jeff. What was that?
No, I just said totally.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's such a joy to talk to you. I really, not only because you're on my podcast, I would have said this anyway. I really dig it. It's so much fun to hear you guys back together again. And playing and collaborating. It's been a blast. I think anybody who really likes well-crafted songs has been aware of you guys for a long time, and it's so much fun to listen to what you guys are doing now. And I'm very fortunate with this podcast. I got, sneak peek to listen to all of these tunes ahead of time, and they're great. And they bring something they're a little different, And then actually they sent me the versions with just the instrumental version of these songs too. So I got to hear that too, which is kind of nice because in a way then I could really focus on what you guys were doing from an instrumentation standpoint. So that was a lot of fun. So Tim, I hope that you're going to be safe. Last question. So let's say the vaccine's working and we're getting back to normal. What would be your ideal 2021?
Gosh, well, I mean, we have this EP comes out in January, and then we'll have the third one will come out at some point next year. But it'd be nice to find one of the bands that we're all either have played with or worked with, musicians like, I don't know, some band like the Foo Fighters or something, ask us to go and tour with them or something. That would be fun to find somebody like that we're friends with to go do some shows. So we'll see. Hopefully we can find something to do.
Well, I hope so. I hope you get to do that, and I know they've got a new album out too, and so that'd be a great time to be able to get on the bill with them. And when you do get the third EP out, let Eric know, since I've had you now and Roger on. I'd love to talk to Eric too, and it's a great joy. And if you guys do make it to Kansas City, I'd be happy to take you out and buy you a drink and say thank you for all the great music over the years.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
It's a total joy to get to talk to you. Again, folks, the people out there, the Lickerish Quartet, they've got their second EP coming out in January. The first single and video is up. It's called Snollygoster Goon, and you can watch that. I'll put all the links up on this podcast to that clip, to all the Lickerish Quartets, where you can find them on Facebook, Twitter, all of it, everywhere. And thanks so much, Tim. I hope the rest of your 2020 is safe, and look forward to hearing from you guys more in 2021.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care, Tim.
All right. Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye.
Tim Smith, everybody. Great guy, great conversation. And, it's the gig economy, right? So I think it's great these guys are being creative and figuring out how they can make a few more shekels while they're sitting at home and doing these things. So, yeah, man, you want to write a song with the members of Lickerish Quartet, you can do that. You want to have them cover one of your songs, you can do that. You want to have them cover a song you love, you can do that. So check that out. It's I have their links down there below for their website and some of the tracks, and be sure to check that out. So thanks for Tim for that. This is the last official podcast for me in 2020, and 2020 has been a very interesting year and also challenging year in a way, but I try to look at the bright side, and one of the bright sides of this for me personally on this podcast is I don't think Tim Smith's on my podcast if we don't have COVID. I know Neil Giraldo's not on this podcast if we don't have COVID, and the list goes on and on. So obviously COVID's a bummer. Musicians are really hurting. That's a bummer. But selfishly, having the opportunity to talk to so many great musicians over the year has really helped, and I've really enjoyed it, and it's made, I think, this podcast a lot better. So thanks to everybody over the year to join me. And I want to close out, and I know most of you in Kansas City already know this, but I think it's important to recognize the amazing life that was Molly Hammers. Molly, of course, was a great jazz singer here in Kansas City who battled with total grace and humor and dignity breast cancer for 13 long years. And, I'm Facebook friends with Molly. I've seen Molly play out a bunch. We have a lot of friends ourselves. And I actually had talked to Molly last summer online, texting back and forth about being on this podcast. And she said, yeah, she'd love to do it. And we kind of went back and forth. But I could, that was selfish of me. That was about making me feel better and making me want to have somebody on that's interesting. And I really didn't push it, because she had so much to deal with, and she was so exhausted, and she was fighting this horrible, horrible disease with every bit of her soul. So I let it go, and then Molly passed away in November. But if you get a chance, be sure to listen to Molly's music. If you get a chance, be sure to see some of the things that she did and talked about. She was a joyful person in a really unjoyful situation, and we can all learn a lot from that. So finally, I like to keep busy with projects. I had been kicking around. There's an Ian Moore Christmas song. A lot of you will remember Ian was on the podcast back in the summer, and he had a Christmas song, Don't Seem Like Christmas, that he released probably, 15 years ago now. And I always really loved that song, and I always thought it'd be great to do it more kind of as a jazz thing. So I talked to Paula Saunders, who's been another guest. Paula is actually a good friend of Molly's, and obviously was devastated by this news. So long story short, we re-recorded the Ian Moore song, Don't Seem Like Christmas. I rearranged it. I changed it up a little bit, and we put it out, and I'm really happy with it. And we wanted to dedicate it to Molly's memory. When I was recording this with Paula, we talked a lot about Molly, and one of the things we talked about was Paula said that, Molly had mentioned to her that she really, really wished she could live to see one more Christmas. And apparently Molly really loved Christmas. And that stuck with Paula, because Molly died in November and didn't get to. So we talked about the whole time that we wanted to, make this a fundraiser for Kansas City Music Foundation. They have a musicians fund, help raise money for so many musicians that are hurting. And apparently Molly actually, her last album, she dedicated all the funds of that album, every cent, to that foundation and that fund, which is just another great example of what a great person she was. So I just wanted to let people be aware of that. Obviously it's heartbreaking about Molly, but we certainly wanted to remember her. So I thought I would end the podcast for this year, last original podcast of this year, with our tune. So this is Don't Seem Like Christmas. It's myself on guitar. It's Paula Saunders, who's phenomenal singing. It's Desmond Mason, who's another phenomenal musician, on keyboards. It's my buddy Rob Van Bibber on drums, and it's Clay Johnson on bass. Clay, you probably remember, was on the podcast for the Kyle Sexton group. So Merry Christmas to everybody, and this is to you, Molly. I hope the rest of us can live with as much dignity and grace as you did.
Though it may not snow this year, I'd take the rain if you were here. And through the maelstrom of your eyes, yeah, I'd find some light, sympathize. Do you think you might be willing to come around this year? It just don't seem like Christmas when you're not here. Oh, spend some time on the avenue, but nothing seemed to fit my mood. Yeah, all the things you would have liked around the tree, Christmas night. Though the weather's cold and cloudy, one thing's becoming clear: it just don't seem like Christmas when you're not here. Mistletoe kisses, yeah, I still remember. Years passed us by and now it's December. Presents unopened, wishes unspoken, send them along anyway. Unspoken, send them along anyway. Wherever you might be tonight, whoever's sleeping by your side, come morning by the Christmas tree, I hope that you will think of me and try to make yourself a promise to get in touch this year. It just don't seem like Christmas, you're not here. It just don't seem like Christmas when you're not here.